Hey everybody, this is Talkative Carl, back again for another JoJo's Bizarre Adventure spoiler review, and I'm covering the last arc that I've watched, Golden Wind. This is my second time actually going through it. Um, After this point, the next JoJo review will be the one I haven't seen uh, as of yet. It's on Netflix, which is covering Jotaro Kujo's daughter Jolene Joestar. So I refrained myself from watching that until like I got to this point. Uh, it's gonna be a hot minute before I eventually get through it, but it's definitely gonna be after I cover season 2 of Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds, which I already covered season 1 up on the channel, which you can check out if you're a fan of Yu-Gi-Oh! YouTube.com/talkativecarl. And I'm just like with Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains, I'm keeping myself, away from it. So like I come in fresh so I can give you my immediate thoughts. So look forward to that in the future. But yeah, now we're covering Golden Wind, which I dug. So it's like I love the, you know, you're not in one. That's the I appreciate like animes like this because it's not like your run of the mill demon hunting, sword wielding protagonist kind of shtick. But once again, you got characters with like musical references with their stands and the characters' names and stuff like that. What I like about this, which I wish they kind of carried on throughout the entire arc, but only did it half of the arc, is when at the end of like the first half of the arc, at the end of each episode, they play Jodeci song "Freaking You," and I thought like for some reason it seemed like matching perfectly to like the characters involved, the way like they posing at the end of the credits, and I didn't care for like the end credit music at the second half of the arc. And because of this show, because I wasn't aware of Jodeci like that, I'm pretty sure I've heard of Jodeci. Uh, it just didn't really stick with me until like when I first saw Golden Wind a couple of years ago. And probably, matter of fact, it was in 2019. I think I first watched Golden Wind, and like, man, I was telling my friends like, "You heard this Jodeci song?" And she's like, "Yeah, it's always been around." I was like, "How come I never heard of it?" It's like it's like uh, I love that music, and every time I hear it, I just think of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Golden Wind arc. And I like the new sets of characters here. This is set 2 years after the events of Diamond is Unbreakable, which once again, I covered Diamond is Unbreakable, Stardust Crusaders, and Phantom Blood, and uh, you know, uh, and Tenacity something up on the channels. You can check it out, so you can hear my thoughts on each of these arcs. But like unlike the previous uh, arcs, the characters involved a little bit more slimmer. They're not like bulky action hero looking kind of guys, which I appreciated because I guess it's something that in as times, because this is set in 2001, so it's like long past time during the age of like buff action, because like during like the 80s, like like 90s and 80s and so on, whereas like the action movie type of guy is always like like buff, but uh early 2000s is not like that's not your typical action hero anymore. It's like they evolve with the time. So these guys, this is set in Italy, unlike other, because it's like primarily in Italy. There's no going to different countries this time around. But these guys pose in a way. Well, they all pose, but these guys kind of pose like Greek statues from time to time, and it gets pretty bizarre. But yeah, I like these new sets of characters. Some of them don't end up making it, but Yeah, the new star here, uh, Journal Giovanna, and he is the illegitimate son of Dio. But since like Dio had like the body of uh, Jonathan Joestar, technically he's more of a he takes on the quality of uh, the Joestar family than Dio, despite his blonde hair. But I don't know. Part of me kind of wishes that there was maybe like a tinge, maybe not like all the way, but like evil or anything like that. But it's like give him like a slight little edge and attitude that gives like oh, that's a little deal right there. But yeah, he pretty much had the kid out of wedlock, like the one rare woman that Dio did not end up killing in his little exploits. So his mother was pretty crappy. Like she likes going out night on the town, leaving the kid alone by himself, which Journal didn't like put up a fuss about it. He's like he just dealt with it. Uh, uh, so he pretty much had to raise himself, which is a shame. But he has like the same like moral compass, strong moral compass as the other Joestar family. His stand is called Gold Experience, which has the ability to imbue things with life. Like he turned like a brick into a snake kind of situation, and he's able to heal people by if somebody's missing like one more character was missing a tongue because it got ripped off by other stand. He replaced the missing piece of the tongue with a pen, which imbued it with like life energy to match the person he was healing. So he became like a huge lifesaver in this new group of characters. You also got Bruno Bucciarati, who's like because this is like very mafia centered kind of scenario, very like Goodfellas, type of thing. He's like uh, uh, he's part of like the mafia family, but he's one like because there's like the big boss who nobody's ever seen, and only maybe one or two people actually had like a face-to-face conversation that relays information to the other crime heads. Bruno is one of them, and each crime head has their like a crew of 5 to 10, and no more no less. I like Bucciarati. Like he's not like a typical like mafioso. It's like he's like a mafioso with like a heart of gold, which he has some because growing up, his father nearly lost his life because he was a fisherman and he accidentally spied on some illegal dealings and with like distributing drugs into Italy, and Bruno saved his life while he was in the hospital healing. So he eventually met up with this fat guy named Polo or something, and that's like in prison, but he's pretty much like type of guys like Kingpin that he's still running the prison despite him being in prison. To at least not like that extent, but he got like a mini fridge and like a big ass comfy bed and things like that. So he's sitting pretty. Then you got like a Bacchio, another member of Bucciarati's crew. He used to be a police officer, but despite his he came into it, wanted to protect people and do the right thing, but like like I guess to his perspective, you deal with ungrateful citizens and people like spit on him and just getting disrespected, and like he eventually like took a bribe when he saw like a guy trying to assault a woman. And he like, oh, he didn't see anything, but uh, sometime later, that same crook was breaking in somebody's house and end up killing the person living there, and him and his Abakio and his partner busted in, and like being worried that he will be labeled as like a dirty cop, which eventually it happened anyway after things kind of like surfaced. His partner took a bullet that was meant for him when that guy was about to shoot Abakio, and he caused the death of his own partner. So everything went downhill from there. Then he got recruited by Bucciarati. Then you got like Mista, who he got like a raw deal because he killed these gang members that was about to rape a woman, and for some reason the court is not believing the truth. I don't know why the woman didn't speak up in his behalf. It didn't seem like she was killed in the process, so she could have easily stood up for him, but nobody believed him. It was like very like circus of a court. So he went to prison. It seems like not that long, but he ended up discovering his stand ability called Sex Pistols, but I think like Six Pistols in the anime. But each of these individual stands that help maneuver his bullets to any direction he wants to, and they speak to him. All 6 of these bullets from his little revolver, it's 5 bullets because he has a superstition about the number 4. It's like bad luck to him. It's kind of like the number 13 to most people. So you don't see a number 4. And I think this maybe since stands manifest from the user's will, I guess number 4 wasn't manifesting because of that superstition. So he eventually got bailed out by Bucciarati after he read the report and saw read what happened and everything like that. Like, no, you got a raw deal, and someone with a heart like yours doesn't belong in prison. So he recruited him. Then you got like Narancha, who's the party like second youngest next to Giorno, even though most of these guys look like they can easily be 21 or 22, but some people saying like, oh, like, because obviously Bucciarati probably be the oldest out of all of them, considering he was like a police officer. It was like it's been like a while, but I don't know. Narancha's mother died from eye disease. He was abandoned by his father. He'd been living on the street, but he looked up to this, street thug that seemed like a decent guy, and convinced him to change his hairstyle. And because of that, the law, mistook him for that guy, and so he got, sent to prison for a while, and was cruelly beaten by cops in the process, and ended up getting like the same kind of like an infection in the eye. Which is like like obviously he was a young kid, so he wasn't in prison. He was in like the junior detention facility kind of thing. But Bucciarati paid for his medical bills to fix his eye. Narancha said like, I want to join your crew, and Bucciarati's like, no, you're gonna go to school, you're gonna get your grades up, and you're gonna do well with your life. But Narancha, despite going to school and whatever, he still through like just I guess determination. It's like, no, like I want to work with you. You, like, you was there for me, like nobody else was. And Fugo, there's finally Fugo, who uh, and he got probably the saddest backstory because he came from like an affluent family, but it's like those hard case kind of parents. Is like, get perfect grades, like go to like the like play the piano, do all this perfectly, and go to this like affluent school. But then he was, it was clear he was being molested by this college professor, which, because he was, 13 years old, so he pretty much excelled and got there pretty young. And so Fugo beat the guy to death. And even though he was arrested, the family just, not out of any kind of kindness, but just like, you don't want any kind of, their name being ruined. So they bailed him out, but he's no longer their son. They just pretty much like shunned him for like, ruin the family name kind of situation. And that's when eventually Bucciarati like recruited him. Oh, Naranja'S stand, it's called, what was it? Little Bomber. And it's pretty much like this like toy, look like a toy airplane, but it shoots like, real gunfire. And it's like he used it to like, survey it. It's a good reconnaissance tool because he got like a scope on his eye. And, Little Bomber can detect like the breathing patterns of the enemy, so you can easily track them. So yeah. Oh, and Bucciarati's stand is called Zipper Man, and this is the funniest. Like some of these characters got the funniest like outfits because like he got like a zipper motif in his outfit because his stand has the ability to open up these portals in like an image of somebody opening and closing a zipper. So for some reason I just like it. I like that look of Zipper Man. Abacchio has this stand. What was it? Moody Jazz. You can tell it's like a straight up a musical reference, but it's pretty much like a living recorder, whereas like he summons the stand and he has this little like timer on his forehead, and you can replay back any point in time. It will take time depending on how many years go by. I'm sticking it into the chair. But it helps replay back events so they can like investigate if something seems amiss, which is done very creatively. And I like the design because like his eyes and like kneecaps and elbows are reminiscent to like the appearance of those old rotary phones that had like those the ends on the caps where you talk and listen to. His eyes are like that, and I thought that was a clever design. I like that. And he makes a dial tone when he's doing a recording. So this is our group, and the anime starts as nice little parallels, or at least passing the torch in some fashion, with Koichi from Diamond is Unbreakable visiting Italy on behalf of Jotaro, who is investigating rumors of a possible son of Dio, and just trying to investigate to see if he's like a possible threat, and they want to try to nip it in the bud if he is, because we don't want a second Dio roaming around. Can't have that. So eventually, by happenstance, because stand users are just drawn to each other, as soon as because General was like kind of running like a scam outside the airport, he just happened upon Koichi. Uh, he's trying to scan Koichi, but it's like a nice little moment where he gets surprised by Koichi because he's a stand user, and at this point in time, Journal doesn't know anything about stands. He just knows he's got like some kind of strange ability. He wasn't aware there's more people out there like him. So he gets shocked when, like, as he's trying to take off in a car with Koichi's suitcase with all his, like, his cash and clothes and passport and all the other stuff. And it's like, Koichi use his stand to, like, hold the car still, so won't be driving off. You can see how, like, Koichi kind of grew up a bit, even though he's still short, but he's like grown into like a good stand user. But eventually Jono got away, and he ends up having to pretty much kill this other scam artist, but he seems like a complete asshole. It's pretty much like a bully almost, that also happened to work for like the same mafia group as like Bucciarati, but not a part of their particular crew. They don't even like the guy because he's like because the unethical things he does. Even though they're part of the mafia, they probably do some shady stuff, but they don't go outside the bounds to the point where it's like, okay, there's a line that you don't cross. There's certain lines, like they don't peddle drugs at all, period. And they, they don't harm, children, things like that. They pretty much like behave like a Robin Hood type of thing, but working for the mafia. So because Jonah end up having to kill this guy, Bucciarati gets word from the boss, at least one of the capos, to go find out who killed this guy, because that is like a disrespect to the family, the familia. And side note, I like this. What I really like about this is because like they sprinkle in quite a bit some Italian for you, and it's like, grazie mille, or like buongiorno. It's like you hear other stuff a little bit more like a few longer sentences, but you get like you get to absorb that, learn a little. It's kind of like Dora the Explorer. You learn a little bit of Italian in this, and it's pretty dope. So Bucciarati ends up tracking down Giorno, and they had like a little scuffle between each other. And it's a weird thing or a bizarre thing that Bucciarati ended up like, because Giorno completely lied to him about like meeting this guy and wasn't involved, blah blah blah, and like, oh, like, my mistake, excuse me. But then like he shows up behind him and licks his cheek and is like running a sweat. It's like I can tell by the sweat that like the perspiration that you do have something to do with this and blah blah blah. And it's like, because the creator of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure has like a like a history of forgetting things that he put in earlier and it's never brought up again. This is one of them here, where it's like you've never seen Bucciarati utilize this weird skill to like tell when somebody's like lying to him or whatever. It was just a gross thing. So they had like a little scuffle, but even though Giorno came on top, he wasn't going to deliver any kind of killing blow, because even though like there's a moment where Bucciarati was hiding and using Zipperman to hide inside like a person via like portal, Giorno took notice that when he released himself from hiding inside this stranger, he took care not to like harm the individual, which gives Giorno like, oh, like, I can tell you have a good heart because you made sure you took care not to harm this guy as you try to leave his body. And he lets Butrati know about his dream of becoming like a mafioso, but he has bigger aspirations of becoming like a capo, like the head of all of the families. But Butrati says like, well, you got a test to do. You got to go see my boss, one of the other bosses, not like the head boss, but one of the other captains or so. And this fat guy, Palpo, who had a stand ability, which is kind of utilizes fire. Well, not fire, but it's kind of like a weird court jester looking thing. And he gave him, it's kind of like John Wick, he gave him an impossible task. He gave Giorno a lighter, and it's fully lit. And he tells him, you keep this flame lit for a day and come back, and it hasn't gone out not once, no matter if it was like an accident or whatever, then you're part of the familia. But if it goes out, and I would know, because he has a stand as part of that lighter, I would know, and that means that I won't be able to trust you, and like I will end up killing you. So while Koichi is tracking down his stains, because Giorno still has it, because he needs his password back at the very least, all the while he's trying to keep this flame lit, and it's like a grueling little moment when it's like you get things like this in JoJo's adventure, and it's like, I gotta keep this flame lit, and it's like he going all through these obstacles, and just when he's like good, yes, I got it, and the flame didn't go out, Koichi didn't find out. As soon as he walked down the stairs and some dude cleaning the streets accidentally splashed water in Giorno's direction and put the whole entire flame out, and like, motherfucker. But because the flame went out, that captain's stand produced, and I'd start attacking the old guy on the street there through the water, and he shot him with this golden arrow, and which shocked Koichi because like he recognized that golden arrow, and this guy utilizes his stand to like seek out any potential stand users. But of course, if you remember, these golden arrows kill anybody who isn't a potential stand user. So he ends up killing this guy by just killing his soul altogether, and he starts going after Koichi and Giorno, which they end up with a cool team up defeating this thing. But for some reason it didn't, because he's a stand user, maybe because he's a long range stand user, but I don't know. Typically when a stand dies, the user dies along with them, because they're connected to their essence. But Giorno, in a slick move, pretend like everything's all fine and the light didn't go out, so he's made part of the familia. But then because of what this fat slob concocted, and he's probably did like a lot throughout the years, and probably had like a lot of body counts because of his arrow, he turned one of this guy's bananas in his fridge into a gun, or he made a gun. No, well, he has to go through he has to make I don't know. I forgot, like, because he had to smuggle in a gun, but he gets searched every time he leaves and comes in. So which leads me to believe he had to turn the banana into a gun, a functioning gun, or somehow he got a gun inside and made it look like a banana, and the guy grabbed the banana long after Giorno had left, and then ended up blowing his own brains out. Never seen it again. But there's like a hidden treasure trove that he had stashed somewhere that only Butrati knew, and that helps him, like, if he finds it, it helps anybody who finds it rise up further into the Familia because he has the collateral. But before we get into that, Koichi like says his goodbyes with uh, Giorno. Even though for it's weird that Koichi would be fine with him just saying that I got a goal in mind to become a couple in the mafia, and it's like that doesn't raise any red flags. You don't want to call the cops, or it's like this guy wants to be a mafioso. It's like that's like okay, that should be like something that you should be calling the cops for. But this is the last, like I think episode 3 is the last you see of Koichi in this. It's pretty much like a passing of the torch kind of situation to the next group of heroes. Koichi calls up Jotaro, let him know that I get from the vibe from him that he's not Dio. He got a good soul, so I don't think we have anything to worry about this guy, and which kind of puts like Jotaro at ease. So now we don't see these guys anymore. Now it's all about Journal and his adventure. So he meets Bucciarati's crew, and they all like act pretty shitty to him because he's like the new guy. And it's like, okay, did y'all act this crappy to each other when like Narancia or like Kugo? Well, Kugo was the first one to cover the group, but when the other guys starts coming in, did y'all treat them this crappy? Because why is Journal being singled out? I guess they've been like a tight unit for quite a bit, I guess. So anybody knew, they pretty much haze. They try to get the ex police officer Abakio, I think. Yeah, Abakio piss in a cup and try to give it to Journal to like, oh here, like welcome to the Familia. Let me offer you a drink. And of course he, Journal drunk it all and like shocking, disgusting everybody. But little did they know, he turned one of his teeth into like a jellyfish to soak up, all liquids. But some droplets had to go in your mouth, and the smell alone should have tipped you off that it was piss. So the whole entire thing was still disgusting. But they go off on the mission to try to find this loot. And along the way, you see these crazy stand users, one in particular on a boat that he somehow uses the stand to combine two boats together to make it look like a single boat. And so it's like a thin membrane where he's slipping through. And it's like an awesome scene because he has this stand ability to like deflate people and drag them into the boat. But they looking all over the boat, and it's like, we don't know. But Giorno using his stand to turn, because like the first one to get sucked down was Narancha, and he's left his shoe behind. So he turned his shoe into a fly, and it's just drawn to the body, trying to be whole again. And it's flying around in a particular area of the boat, and everybody's just quietly disappearing. There's only Abakio, Giorno, and Bucciarati left, and they are flummoxed. But utilizing Moody Jazz, the rewind time and notice like the stand user. However, they still trying to find it, but Journal trying to prove himself, and at least like show his worth into the crew, which Abakio still is not cutting him any slack. He doesn't for quite some time. It's like, what do you guys got against this guy? It's like he hasn't done anything. It's like he's the new kid in class, and everybody just want to pick on him for no reason. And like even then, like after him seemingly sacrificing himself just to give Bacchio and Bucciarati a chance to nail this guy, Bacchio's like, don't think you doing that will make me change my mind about you, but like, damn you, Giorno, I want to like save your dumb ass. Oh, and by the way, there's so many characters in this that get ticked off at the drop of a hat for no reason. It's like everybody's like so aggressive. Like you cross the street and like without looking both ways, and the car stops narrowly hitting you. Well, not narrowly hitting you, but it's like clearly you had time to see him or whatever. But he gets, character like that just gets so angry. Hey, why don't you move out of the way, you dumb piece of shit? Like, it's like, whoa, like you get a lot of characters like this that just 0 to 100 with that attitude. But they finally beat this guy, but not before he managed to call out for assistance for his partners. There's other group of mafia members, and each with their own unique stand abilities. So now they're like trying to head off Bucciarati's team. So like you get like a stand user who's like utilizing mirrors, kind of like Mirror Master from DC, and he's dragging like what's his name, Fugo into it first. And Fugo has a stand ability, probably according to Abakio, is probably one of the most dangerous ones in the crew, called Purple Haze, which is pretty much like, he secrete poison. And even when he's punching his fist, you got these little cup-like things that break off every time he lands a punch, which secrete more poison, which pretty much like decays everything. And thanks to Giorno's quick thinking, he poisoned part of himself, which forced and tricks the guy trying to bring Giorno into his world, which also brings in the poison that he's been trying to keep out for the longest time. And like they end up defeating that guy. There's another guy who, I don't know, like, Mista ended up defeating after he's been like, I don't know, using kinetic force or something like that to like avoid getting hit or something. It's like probably like the weakest stand user so far, but it was like a cool battle between like him and Mista, because you get each one of these guys get their moment to shine and take on a different mafia member. They just like gunning at each other. Narancha has like a cool moment with this guy who shrinks things, but it gets intense because like he shrinks Narancha and put him in a bottle with a fucking spider in it, just to force him to reveal any secrets that he and Bucciarati found. And I couldn't even watch that because I do not like fucking spiders. But like Narancha ended up like nailing this guy thanks to his quick thinking. But along the way, once they finally reach that destination and find like all this cash, which I don't know what they did with it. They probably stored it somewhere else or something. I don't know. But they end up meeting this old guy who's been looking after this woman, her name being Tris Una, who later on turns out to be a stand user too. Her stand is Spicy Lady, kind of like a, but in the Japanese dub is Spice Girl, after the Spice Girls, and her stand ability is to turn things into malleable rubber, which is pretty dope. And turns out she is the daughter of the head mafioso, Diavolo. And this guy, well, I want to say it's not like I'm not saying it's like a repeat of Dio Brando's ability, but it's just like these two has a same, not the same ability, but in the same vein of an ability to control time in some aspects. Although like Dio is able to stop time, while Diavolo, fast forwards time, or at least to everybody's perception, time kind of stops for a moment while he's moving in a normal pace kind of thing, or at least controls space time in general, and which makes him like a significant threat too, because he has like split personality, and he met up with like uh, Trisha's mother a long time ago, and dude's like a complete psychopath. Like this series really know how to make psychopaths, because when he was born, he didn't even cry once because the mother, for some reason, like, you know, had him in prison. It's kind of like Freddy Krueger in a way, because he was born in a prison after she was like raped by a bunch of psychopaths. But she doesn't know who the father is. It had like a one night thing 2 years prior before she got locked up. But he grew up, you know, having like a split personality, or DID, dissociative identity disorder, and one of those identities and took the form of his like well, I won't say took the form of his Stan, but he's obviously the dominant one who like mastered the Stan and speaks through the Stan. And it's like there's moments where like this guy clearly off his rocker, because he doesn't utilize phone traditionally, because he goes like and like picks up this random object and it's like, yes sir, yeah, okay boss, you got it. And he's obviously speaking to his alter, it was more like sinister, like, I only trust you. So it was like, that's, this villain's pretty good. Still not good as like Dio, but like him and Kira and Dio, like, these guys are like serious serial killers, but just like in different, facets in that realm. Because it'd be kind of interesting to see these three guys fight. Well, obviously Dio will probably be ultimate winner, but it's like seeing Diablo and like Kira fight each other, because see how that turns out. Like, can you imagine that kind of fight? These two, serial killers. But he met, Trish's mom a long time ago. They had like a nice little relationship, it seemed. But once he's become like start, getting into like the mafia, he decides like I'm rising up, and I can't, because he makes sure he does not leave any trace of his previous life behind. So for all he knew, she wasn't pregnant. But when he found out, it's like, okay, which leads to here, where it's like seemingly he wants to reconnect with his daughter, but it turns out that he wants to kill her because she's the only person who will have any kind of connection to his past, which he wants to eradicate so he can keep his anonymity. And Butcherati and the others go to great lengths to try to keep her safe. Although, while, because they do fight like several stand users along the way, with all different facets of powers. Like one, controlling like some kind of shark that can travel between liquids, and the other can control, like, he has a stand to control like what you say, like making you say the opposite of what you really mean. God, there's more. Like, they're escaping me from right now, but you get the picture, and you get like several. Oh, and there's one that's control ice. He's making like an ice armor thing, and he's running on skates, but he has like a weird temper on his own right, but then there's like another guy and his brother, who, the little brother got like a celery stuck for a hair, and he's got like the weirdest looking head I ever seen in like anything. Probably like, I thought Stewie from Family Guy had the weirdest shaped head, but this guy takes the cake. And he talks like this. Come on, big bro. You don't talk to me like that. I'm trying. His stand is like a fishing pole that it's deadly as hell because like it just passes through things until it hooks the target that you want to hook, and it gets into your skin and starts like crawling until it reaches your heart, so you can hook the heart and kill you. That is just terrifying. And Butrati had to beat him by like zipping up his body into parts to seem like he's dead. And then his older brother has like a stand that uh, expedite the aging process to his victims, which is hard to look at. It's like, a mom, aging, seemingly aging to death, and the baby, seem like aging to like like a old man. It's like, and he's screaming like, "Mommy, please wake up, mommy!" And it's like, oh my god, that was like tough to see, because he just like lets loose his stand indiscriminately, because he, as he puts it, like, we have a goal in mind. Doesn't matter if we have to cut off our own body parts to achieve the goal. We'll do it. And like, Butrati really had to like step up his game and take this guy down himself. But then there's like another guy who has like a computer type of stand that, you know, takes the form of like certain objects or whatever, and shows up in like, pixelated blocks. Jono managed to take him down fairly quickly. But anyway, once they reach like this, particular destination, where it was a last, known coordinates where, like, because Trish only recall the particular area that he was last known to live at, and they found this like picture where he's like, took of her mom. They go there using Moody Jazz to rewind time to the exact moment so they can find the face of this guy, so they can be able to better track him down and kill him. Otherwise, neither they or Trish will be safe. And of course, Diavolo doing everything he could to like stop this. And of course, the leader of the other group of mafia guys who've been trying to stop Butrati's team this whole time, he's the only one left at this point, and he spots Diavolo's passive alternate, Vinegar Doppio, and this guy who got like silver hair and red eyes, he's like has the ability to manipulate iron, and since iron's, as he puts it, and it's true, it's everywhere, more than you think, inside the bloodstream of our body, in the air and plants. It's like you don't realize how much iron I can manipulate. It's kind of like low ramp Magneto, and he causes like scissors and nails and razor blades to come out this guy's face and like neck. It was grotesque. It was like, oh my god, if you're squeamish, this this anime can make you get pretty squeamish. But like, it's like I said, it's fun to see two legit bad guys in this go at it with each other and see who can outthink each other, because that's what I like about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. It's not like a straight up like just battle. It's a battle of wits on top of an actual physical battle. And of course, thanks to like Diablo's quick thinking, he managed to, or at least Doppio's quick thinking, he managed to manipulate Naranja'S little bomber into shooting this guy. And so he managed to slip away just in time while he's trying to recover from that battle between this guy. But not before he ends up killing Bakio, but not before Bakio managed to leave an imprint of this guy's face thanks to his Moody Jazz on this piece of rock. And of course, this is like their first loss in the group. And of course, like, Fugo's not part of this group anymore after saving Trish from the boss from this clock tower when they, thought it was going to reunite them. He decides to not tag along anymore because he takes the job of the mafia seriously, and it's like I'm not going to turn against the boss, but I'm not going to stop you, but I'm not going to turn against the boss either. So like from this moment on, I'm going in my separate ways from you guys, which is sad because it would have been like beneficial to have this guy around, but you know, it's like, I mean, you know, like everybody make their choice, and nobody's gonna fault him for that, and Boutry is not faulting him for that. Uh, but it would have been nice to have like that kind of helping hand, because like, you know, Purple Haze is like a powerful stand. Oh, and by the way, Boutry at this point in time is like kind of slowly dying in a way, because you know his first battle with Diavolo in that clock tower seemingly looked like he killed him, and Jono thought he got to Boutry in time, but it's pretty much, you know, stalling danger of death at this point, because Boutry is not losing that much blood when he's getting cut. And it's like, as Trish put it, like, you know, his like, you know, empathy seems like diminished a bit, because he didn't bother to ask if anybody's okay after like a situation with another stand user, another serial killer, this guy who causes like, which is kind of ingenious when you come up with like cool powers. It's kind of like My Hero Academia, when you come up with like cool, unique powers. It's not like your run-of-the-mill stuff. Where one of this guy causes like some kind of germ infection whenever you know, go below a certain level or some like height. When you descend, anytime you descend, that's when the stand activates and causes like, you know, germ-like thing to cause your body to fall apart. And he has this like little assistant or nurse or whatever by his side, who's wrapped up in like look like a gimp suit almost, and he has the ability to like burrow onto the earth and that kind of thing and drag people in. This fight was intense. It took quite a bit of ingenuity from everybody's part to, you know, take these two down. But they on their way to Rome, because you don't know yet, but at least they don't know yet. But they get a tip off by Polarev, another Stardust Crusader guy, who now at this point in time is in a wheelchair after his first run in years ago, like at least 13 years ago, with Diavolo, not realizing his stand's full capability, which caused him to nearly lose his life. But he ends up finding like one of the golden arrows, which causes his silver cherry to get pricked by it, and little like they didn't realize, because Polov is explaining like the full extent of like these arrows, because a long time ago this meteorite came from space, crashed to Earth in the 70s, and these arrows are made from that same material from the meteorite. And this meteorite, when a human being or just any living thing connects to it, if there's like any kind of spark of a chance for a stand ability, they will produce it, but otherwise you will end up dying. And like the woman that had like a son that killed Polarev's sister, she somehow fashioned this meteorite into several arrows that you see throughout the entire you know, from Stardust Crusaders up until now. And you know, obviously most of them are destroyed, but there's like, you know, a couple like still, you know, found here and there. So, you know, then when a stand, we already know what happens to a human being when they get hit by these arrows, but a stand, if it touches it or they get pierced by it, it gives them a massive upgrade, kind of like a mega evolution. But Silver Chariot's like ultimate ability is managed to like swap bodies with people, cause people to swap bodies with each other, and then ultimately grotesquely, you know, evolve them or mutate them in like grotesque ways, until they, you know, like are not themselves anymore. So like Silver Chariot like had like weird abilities that we did not realize he can do. But then he contacted Boutry's team to like, meet me in Rome. I'll tell you everything But along the way, after Bucciarati is pretty much like, overtaxed by his battle with this, uh, guy who's tunneling under the ground, he's finally beat him. Papio finds this guy after traveling all the way to Rome to head them off. He managed to switch all personalities and seemingly kill Polarev, but Requiem, Silver Chariot of Requiem, the ultimate form, managed to activate his ability, and Polarev managed to get inside this turtle, which throughout this time, Bucciarati's been using it to this golden key that can fixate to the back of the shell of this turtle that's set up like a portal into this massive room that has refreshments and couches and things like that to keep like people safe, like a safe house, like a mobile safe house. And so Polar's body gets switched into that, and since Diavolo has multiple personalities, his Wicked side hides inside like Triss's body, while Papio hides and is like laying unconscious inside Bucciarati's body, and Bucciarati goes inside the boss's body. Narancha switches places with Giorno. Trish switches places with Mista. So it's complete confusion, and as Requiem is walking down the street with the single-minded goal, the last kind of like earnest thing, like at least like what Polar's mind was on, is protecting and keeping people from touching his arrow. Requiem at this point is like, okay, that's my ultimate goal. Nobody's touching his arrow. And anybody who's trying to go near it, like even when like Giorno's trying to just throw a pebble at it, it like comes from like a different like dimension and try to fly back and hit him. And when a stand's trying to like go near it, the stand is forced to start attacking the user. So it's very dangerous until like Diavolo figured out that Requiem has like everybody, because his shadow is not like from the sunlight going in the direction where it should be. And no matter which direction you're walking around Silver Chariot, the shadow goes in a different direction, showing that some kind of mini sun behind everybody's back that you just got to destroy. And then eventually everybody starts going back into their original bodies. And at this point, Narancha gets killed because, like I said, Diavolo was hiding inside Triss's body because according to Polarev, because he's used to sharing the same body with somebody, he can easily do the same thing with other people who just hiding in wait, and he ended up killing what he thought was Giorno, because that's pretty much like, well, scratch that. I'm pretty sure at this point he knew about the body switch, and he knew there was Narancha, because Narancha's little bomber is like helps with reconnaissance, and so he takes out their eyes in the air, and you knew it was coming, because when Narancha was talking about like, oh, we got them beat, I'm gonna go back to school, I'm gonna do this, you might as well have like a target on your back. It's kind of like I'm 2 days from retirement kind of attitude. So despite Giorno, because his body is pretty much like, since it's empty, his soul can go right back to it. But as soon as he does, Narancha's dead. He's just like a corpse at this point. And despite Giorno's earnestness trying to heal Narancha, it's too late. Once the soul leaves the body, that's done, no matter what you're healing. It's the same thing that goes with like Bucciarati when he's trying to like do the same thing. And it's like I said, it's like you're just keeping like the Reaper at bay for a little while, but eventually, Bucciarati is going to die, which he eventually does. And after everybody's soul goes back to their bodies and he's just passing away. Uh, which is sad in a way, but I think was inevitable because given the fact that Jorno wants to be capo and like can't be capo if Butrati is like the next in line. So, but it still saddens me and a lot of the group. And of course, like only Polarev and Jorno know the truth, and like Butrati is not allowing him to say at first, like to relate this kind of information to the others because they got a goal in mind. They don't want to be distracted, which is kind of like one of those things where it's like normally I hate things like that, where it's like in TV shows and movies where it's like, oh, I'm keeping a secret because I was trying to protect you. This is a moment where it's like makes sense because they're in the midst of like they're in the midst of a mission and they're trying to get to a place on time to speak with this guy to try to stop the boss, and it's like we can't afford any distraction right now. We're on a timetable here. So yeah, it makes sense that okay, keep this crap to yourself until everything's all said and done. And of course, like eventually, Golden Wind, gets a hold of the arrow and stabs his own chest like a badass move, and then he becomes Gold Requiem, or a Golden Experience Requiem. And he got like a new ability to like cause like a death loop almost. He still has his same like healing type of abilities, but he got an extra ability now, which now he can cause a person to go through a death loop, kind of similar to like Darkseid with his Omega beings that forces like a continuous person, like a person going through a continuous life over and over again, and each time you go through another horrific death, worse than the last. And that's how they defeat the boss finally, which is like really messed up. Like one of those moments where he's like, seems like he's on an operating table and he's telling his nurse like, "Hey, can't you hear me? Get me out of here. Why I can't move?" And then she, talking on the recorders like, the corpse has been dead for like, such and such many hours, and she starts like taking a scalpel and open up his cavity and like taking out his organs, and he's screaming bloody murder like, ah! And then he wakes up and another thing, and he's getting hit by a car, and it just like goes on, and it's like it's really effed up. That's like a horrific way to go. So that's the end of him. But now it's like Mista and Triss like, come on, we gotta go get Butrati, we gotta heal him. And of course, like, he still doesn't say anything, and like they go off to the Coliseum. And of course there's like another like couple of more episodes, because it's only like 39 episodes or something like that, where it's like shows like the hours before they meet up with Jorno, and this old guy comes to Butrati for help because his daughter died, and he believes this guy that she was seeing was the cause of it. And Mista tags along and come to realize this guy's a stand user, but he's not a malevolent one. His stand, utilizing like the rock, because he's like a sculptor, the rock predicts like a person's like ultimate end, and it predicted because like, well, he trying to tell Mista like all Butrati has to do is touch the stone and he'll have like a more easier passing than what is previously determined, because that's how like the girlfriend ended up dying, because the rock predicted how her father was going to die, because he's like got like certain ailments, or at least they haven't shown up yet, but will, and it will he'll have like a very rough go of it before like a horrible way of, he'll be dying in agony. And the only way like to at least ease, because like she touched the rock, and the only way to ease that by giving her, it wasn't specified what organ, but she ended up holding on to the rock and falling to her death. But when she dies, her organs will still be intact. So that way, the father will end up, because she loves her father, so she because she was gonna, suffer the same fate years later anyway. Like, at least in her elder years, because I guess it's hereditary, I guess. And so she wanted to very least make sure her father's not suffering at the end of his life, and this is the one thing she can at least do for him. But all he knew that, this guy caused the death of his daughter. So it's like that. It wasn't, I mean, they said he was going to go and talk with them, and Misa's explaining about the ordeal and what have you. But because Bucciarati didn't touch the stone crumbled, the stand, I guess, dies, and like the user looks on and see like, what's left of the rubble, and it shows like the faces of Bucciarati, Abbacchio, and Narancia all dying horrific, deaths. Which is, like a fine episode. I don't know if you need to add it towards the end, but the biggest issue I have with this so far is like the end, because I wanted like an extra episode of them going to the Coliseum, acknowledging that Bucciarati is dead, going through that drama, and finally like because it's just not hinted at, but they just kind of, if you look at like a wiki, it explain like, oh, Giorno's like a mafia don now kind of thing, but it's like we don't see that in any capacity. It deserves like an extra episode instead of wasting the last two episodes on like the prelude to them meeting Giorno. It would have been useful to have like an extra episode showing him getting like crowned like the head mafioso, and like them grieving over Bucciarati and all the other fallen comrades. There was a nice shot of Fugo back at home after the moment when Narancia died. It's like a bird that flies by, but his shadow kind of looks like a little bomber, and he just looks up, and it's like, man, it's like he doesn't know, and that'll be like another episode that kind of is worth showing. But yeah, I mean, like I said, there's like certain spots that I wish they kind of add a little bit more to. But man, I love Golden Wind. This is like a fun arc, man. Like, and Fugo, I wish he stuck around. It seems like he's like pissing in the wind with him. It's like, okay, you utilize your stand one time, and how many people that he could have possibly helped. But then again, it's mentioned by Abbacchio that like, oh, Purple Haze is, he doesn't call out Purple Haze often unless he's in dire straits, because the poison affects everybody in omnidirectional way. There's no focus. So it's like not necessarily useful in battle unless Fugo is literally by himself, not by himself, but like if he's only around like the enemy and nobody else is around. And that's probably the more useful way of using his stand, because otherwise he's killing innocent bystanders along the way and his possible teammates. But yeah, Golden Wind is like I said, like Phantom Blood is probably my least favorite arc, even though it didn't say, I would say it got the ball rolling with everything else that came after it, but no, at a certain point the creator realized after Stardust Crusaders what he had on his hands. It's like, no, Stance is like a huge thing with this stuff. All the stuff that came before it was cool, but this is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure from now on, and this is how it's going to be played from now on, which I think was like a smart move. But yeah, let me know in the comments below what you thought of Golden Wind arc, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. I will eventually get to Jolene Joestar's arc at some point, and so look forward to that. Possibly by the end of the year, depending on, well, maybe not the end of the year, but it's like, getting towards the fall, we'll eventually get around to it. Maybe November. Uh, but yeah, I will see you guys tomorrow for more multiverse gameplay, some more God of War 4, and more Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney. So yeah, don't forget to follow me on Twitch if you want to watch me live. We can chat and kick it, what have you. And yeah, I should hopefully I'll get her in sometime, maybe around 4 p.m. Central Time. I'll hop on maybe around that time. But like I said, if you follow me on Twitch, Twitter, and uh, you'll know when I'm going on live, so you can just hop on in. So yeah,